Hello everyone, it's Charity Alexis, and I would like to welcome you back to my third segment of
Let's Talk.
I'm super excited to introduce my very special guest, entrepreneur, motivational speaker, producer, songwriter, creative director,
Musician,
and videographer, and lastly,
electrician.
Mr. Van Allen.
Man, oh man, how you doing, Charity?
I'm amazing. How are you?
Man, I'm excited to be here. And how are you doing,
I'm
Candace?
amazing.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. First of all, I'm so excited to have you join me today.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited because you're such an inspiration to me with all that you do.
Mhm.
You certainly wear a lot of hats. So where did your love of music begin?
That's a great question. My love for music began many years ago, coming up as a kid. I was so proud to watch my cousin, and I think about it now, and I still feel good about it. One of my cousins worked at Motown as a writer.
Wow.
So
What was the cousin's name, man?
Yeah.
Lamont Dozier. He was part of the Holland Dozier Holland writing team.
Very familiar.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
great.
Tell us more.
Yeah.
The thing was, I remember, being a little kid, and Lamont was, he was very close to my mom and my family. And when he started working at Motown, he would come over to the house, all excited about, some new music he had written. And the beauty of it was, I got to hear some of these songs, and a week later, or 2 weeks later, actually hear the songs on the radio.
Wow.
And he would kind of bring them to us to kind of do a trial run. Hey, how do you like this? And so that was very inspirational to me. Be able to he always drove nice cars. He dressed nice, and
Had all the ladies.
yeah, he was a ladies' man. And I remember thinking, man, when I grow up, I want to be just like my cousin. I was fortunate that I had a dad that was a role model as well. So
That's great.
Yeah, he worked out at Ford. So between the two of them, I had the full package, I guess you would say.
So I want to ask, Lamont was a writer and a producer.
Yeah,
and
writer, producer. Lamont's first love was actually to be a singer.
Really?
And he always kind of pursued that goal. But when he went to Motown, Berry Gordy, which I always call him a brilliant man because he had that insight,
Definitely.
and Lamont would, present song ideas to him, and he'd take a look at him, and he said, oh yeah, I got, the right person for this. And Lamont was like, I'm gonna sing that. The list just goes on and on.
There's a famous song that I want to mention that
Which
Lamont
one?
wrote
Uh-huh.
for Diana Ross. Where did our love go? Did he write that?
Yeah, he wrote that, and
So
okay.
what was the most valuable lesson that you learned from your cousin?
One valuable lesson that I learned from him was that basically to never give up on your dream, to keep pushing forward. He had some challenges. Like I said early on, he wanted to be a singer, and he had to take I guess you call a reroute, and he became a great producer and writer. But later on in his career, he went on to become a singer and release records like Trying to Hold On to My Woman and Fish Ain't Biting, and those records did quite well. So what I learned from that is a lot of times as we go through life, we may have to take a little detour, but if in our mind we keep the motivation and keep moving towards our goal, eventually we'll get back on track.
Absolutely.
And you also learned to play an instrument, and you were also in a band. So tell me about that.
Just before I went to high school, I got into the saxophone, and the way that I got into the saxophone, my dad always wanted to play saxophone. So one day I got out of school, and he said, come on, Sonny. We jumped in the car. I didn't know where we were going. We showed up at a pawn shop.
Okay.
We went in the pawn shop, and my dad started looking at saxophones. I'm like, man, what am I gonna do with a saxophone? And I asked him one day, why did you go to the pawn shop and buy me a saxophone? And my dad was a hard worker. He had the money. Why didn't you buy me a new saxophone? You know what he said? He said, because I didn't know if you were gonna continue to play it, and I didn't want to waste any money, so I figured I'd get this pawn shop saxophone. Then if you like it, we'll get you a new saxophone later. As luck would have it, I ended up getting into a band playing saxophone with one of my cousins, and played saxophone for a number of years.
So you also got involved in video and audio production, eventually establishing your own production company.
Right.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so tell us more about that.
Yeah, I got into video and audio production, over 20 years ago. When I discovered my desire or love for communications, it was just a natural transition. I had an opportunity to do some independent contracting work for Comcast. And the thing was, I wanted to be in front of the camera. And when I approached them about doing, a local television show, they said, well, you gotta, kind of learn from the inside out. You gotta learn editing, audio, the whole shot. So once I learned those things, it was just an easy transition, and I went on to, do some television shows.
You also mentioned that when you were a kid, you were an introvert. And it's funny that you should say that, because a lot of people, like, when they see me on stage, they think that I'm this outgoing person and that I'm just really outgoing, but I'm really, really shy. And I have this stage persona, but when I come off the stage, I'm totally different. So how did you overcome being an introvert?
That's a great question, Charity, because, I like to, especially instill in young people to understand that just because you think you're an introvert, that doesn't have to limit you in life from doing the things that you want to do in life. One of the secrets that I share with young people, and actually adults alike, because quite often adults run into the same issues with being introverts, and that's to discover who you are as a person, to discover your true self, your inner self. You see, we all were born with certain gifts, abilities, and talents. And when you can tap into those skills, those gifts, it makes life a lot smoother. Rather than focus on being an introvert, I'll focus on what it is I love, my passion.
Yeah, things that you can do.
Because people have to understand, whatever you can project outwardly, that's something within you that you created. So I see you do it all the time, and I've had an opportunity to see you perform a few times now, and I'm quite impressed. So you got the whole introvert thing down. So being able to, focus and create what you want.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, you also developed your own cable show. I believe it was called On the Positive Side.
Right.
Can you tell us more about that?
It came about because I've always considered myself a positive person, and the idea of that show was to uplift people, uplift the community. So I wanted to do a show that highlighted some of the positive things that people were doing in the community, because I noticed at that time that a lot of the stuff that we see on the news is negative news.
Yeah.
I said, wait a minute, we living in this great city of Detroit, and I know personally that there are a lot of people doing positive things.
Then there was a show called The Mix.
In the Mix.
In the Mix.
That was actually, that was probably one of my favorite shows. It came about because after 2 or 3 years of doing On the Positive Side, I realized that I wanted more. So what I did, I bought my own camera. I was using a studio camera previously, these big, bulky cameras, big, bulky lights. So I bought my own camera and I hit the streets. I used to go down to like Hart Plaza in Detroit and shoot events. I started working with some different music artists in my music career, and I would shoot videos of them on location. And that whole vibe just kind of really transformed. And I called it In the Mix because I felt like I was in the mix. I was in the action. I was out there with the people.
I want to hear more about these dance competitions. Why don't you tell our viewers about that?
Oh yeah, the dance competitions. I really want to hear about that.
Okay, so the Motor City Ballroom Dance Competition. Yeah, there's a great story behind that. But before I share that with you about the dance competition, let me tell you how I got into ballroom dancing. That was kind of interesting. Some years ago, I was just hanging out. I was on the way home from somewhere. Don't remember where, single fella, I'm riding along. I seen some young ladies crossing the street. And I said, man, something must be happening in that place. They were going into this place called Reggie's. in Detroit. So I parked and I went on in. To my surprise, when I got in, I seen people just dancing and having a good time, zipping up and down the floor. One guy would take a lady and he would zip up one floor, one side of the room, switch up, grab another lady and dance back. And I remember thinking, where did these people learn to dance like that? After watching this for about 10 minutes or so, I got intimidated. And I said, I guess I'll get out of here, because if I ask somebody to dance, they're going to expect me to do that. And it was like, no way. As luck would have it, just as I was leaving, I ran into an old childhood friend, a guy by the name of Otis Credit. And I said, man, you know how to dance like that? He says, yes, absolutely. And I'm like, where did you learn to dance like that? He introduced me to an old school dancer by the name of Ray Dorsey. And Ray Dorsey told me, hey, come on over to my spot Tuesday nights. I'll get you together and show you how to ballroom dance. So that's kind of how I got into the whole, ballroom dance scene.
So I've done some motivational speaking, but you have a ton of experience. So can you tell our audience about this and what advice you would give?
Absolutely. I got into motivational speaking, many years ago after I discovered I love communication. And as I said earlier, coming up, I was an introvert. And even though I was an introvert, I still loved speaking. And I noticed when I was a kid, I would listen to people always that were great orators, that were good communicators. And I didn't know why until I got older. I had to get in a situation where I had to speak before an audience. And I loved it. And I said, man, if I can do this, others can do it. I discovered my gift. I discovered my purpose. So I used that platform to help other people to elevate in their lives. So it's just natural to me to want to help people grow, people to make positive changes in their lives and go to the next level. Incidentally, I've heard you speak. I've heard some of your motivation, and you're actually pretty good at it. I gotta give it to you. You're pretty good.
Thank you.
And you are too. And I wanted to ask, is that something that you think can be taught? How do you go from being an introvert and someone who is terrified to get in front of an audience to loving to be in front of
publicly?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in fact, I've been working on a book that I'm going to finish. I'm looking to finish this year, because it's an idea that came to my mind some years ago, where there actually talks about how introverts in particular can become effective in their life, how they can become dynamic, so to speak, by believing in themselves and understanding their gifts. And in answer to your question, is that something can be taught? Absolutely. I always tell people, I can't teach you how to be an extrovert. And they say, why not, Van? Because that isn't my natural innate personality. But I can teach you how to be an effective and powerful introvert.
So tell everyone what you've been up to lately.
Absolutely. Funny you should ask that. but before I get in that, I wanted to say real quick, my partner, Steve Jackson, AEJ Music.
AEJ?
AEJ Music.
Okay.
Yeah, we just released a project called Make 'Em Sweat, hot song. Got a saxophone player, on it by the name of Dave McMurray. And that's a great track. In addition to that, though, we're working on another project with a young lady. I think her name is Charity Alexis.
Oh, I think I know her.
Yeah, Charity Alexis, and man, it's fire, as the young people say. It's just a great project. We'll be releasing that sometime in the next couple of months. And incidentally, I had an opportunity to do a podcast the other day, and we talked about the fact that we're actually going to have open.
Yes, guys, listen to this.
Open auditions for dancers. If you're a dancer between the age of 14 and 17, we want to hear from you. And you don't necessarily have to be a trained dancer. You can be, but we just want you to be able to dance and keep up with young Charity here on some of these hot steps that she'll be doing. So,
and this is to dance in her music video.
In her upcoming video for a track that we're working on for national release around the country.
coming up sometime in March. Now, here's the thing that's important. Make sure that you get parental consent.
Yes.
If you're between 14 to 17, you have to have parental consent or guardian. And we look forward to hearing from you. Now, you want me to give an address where they can?
Please do.
If you're interested in Dancing with Charity, drop us an email. That email is aejmusic, the number 1, @gmail.com.
I'm gonna put it right here.
Yeah. A is in Apple, E is in Eric, J is in James Music, number 1, @gmail.com. And we love to hear from you.
So where can everyone find you on social media?
Yeah, you can connect with me in a couple of places. One, you can find me, you can go to my social media, Van Allen, on Facebook, just simply Van Allen. Just look for my picture in case there's another Van Allen. Right? You can also learn more about me and some of the projects that I've worked on by going to motorcityballroom.com, where you can also find the rebroadcast of the Motor City Ballroom Dance Competition in its entirety. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, you can go to aejmusic, the number 1, @gmail.com. And that's how, get in touch with me.
Lastly,
Be sure to join us again and look out for us next month for our 4th segment
of
Let's Talk. Bye.
Saranada. That is great. Yeah, that is great.
Thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah. See, I made it short. Now, y'all. No.
You can join us again.
In Saranada.
Charity.
Oh,
we gotta say let's talk.
This is my very special guest, entrepreneur, motivational speaker, producer, songwriter, creative director,